We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
While the changes brought about by the Arab Spring are increasingly displaced by disappointment and sectarian violence around the Middle East, it is perhaps remarkable that the only place where democracy seems to be taking root is where it all began, Tunisia. But it's not a sure thing. Surrounded by hostilities from factions in Libya fighting for control to a public beheading performed by Islamist extremists in Algeria, Tunisia is becoming an island in an increasingly dangerous sea of political upheaval and instability. The man in the middle of all this, President Moncef Marzouki, here at the United Nations last week, held up as a shining example, or exception, that not all news from the Middle East is bad. But look under the surface and you'll find that many people here are not taking future success for granted and think democracy is still at risk. In fact, Marzouki himself, who lived in exile as an outsider and human rights advocate, has just decided to run for office again. And today, on Talk to Al Jazeera, in his first interview since that announcement, we begin by asking him why he thinks the country still needs him. You are going to run again as president. Why are you running?
Well, because I think that my job is not finished. You know, I have been a human rights activist for more than 3 decades, and then I really struggled for this peaceful revolution, and then I was honored to be the first president elected after the revolution. But I feel that this revolution is still threatened by the counter-revolution, and also because I think we didn't finish the job. And this is why I'm determined to stay in office and to combat for the second part of the revolution.
You said a moment ago you are still a human rights activist. I remember you saying that to me last time I interviewed you. But there'll be some who are saying now, by standing again, are you becoming a professional politician?
Being a politician is not something shameful, you know. I have been a human rights activist, and in my experience, you know, you have ugly people even in the human rights association, you know, and you have good people in the political parties. So I cannot accept this stereotype of a politician being a corrupted person, etc. Mandela, who was my model, you know, my example, has been a politician all his life, and he has never been a corrupted politician and so forth. So I'm not afraid or not ashamed to say that, yes, why not being a politician?
The forthcoming elections in Tunisia will be under a brand new constitution. And I know a constitution lays out the role for a president, but if you're re-elected, part of how a country works is the way that actual figures take on those roles and what they do in those roles. Do you want to do something different as president next?
No, because I'm not going to change. You know, I didn't change. I'm the same person as I was 10 or 20 years before. I think when you stick to some values, and when you're honest with yourself and your people, you don't have to say, I have more power with the new constitution. My main objective is to keep Tunisian together. This is the first responsibility of a president, you know. Even if he's elected by, let's say, 52%, he has to be the president of also the 48% we didn't elect him. So the first thing is to bring together the Tunisian together, and this is what I tried to do during the past 3 years. You know, when we talk about national dialogue, the national dialogue began the first day I went to Carthage. The first day I was in Carthage, I called the different political leaders and said, look, this would be a very extremely dangerous period for Tunisia. We have to sit together, talk together, try to find. And this is what I did during the past 3 years. You know, I've invited my worst enemies. I've talked with my worst enemies, and this is what I am going to do if I am elected. Talking, even with my worst enemies.
You talk about a dangerous time for Tunisia. Over the next few months, you've got election campaigns taking place really until the end of the year, because you have parliamentary and presidential election, probably a runoff.
Yes.
Is this too, as well as a very exciting time, a dangerous one?
It is. Surely it is. Surely it is exciting and dangerous. Dangerous because we're expecting that, terrorists, what happened? The revolution, the revolution came at time because otherwise the alternative for the dictatorship was the Islamist movement, Islamist caliphate, or Islamist, call it what you like. So because now the Islamist terrorists, the extremists, I wouldn't call them Islamists because in fact they have nothing to do with Islam. I would call them terrorists or extremists, They are very much afraid of Tunisia being a success story, democratic success story. So their main target, is to destroy this possibility. And then they are threatening us all the time. And I expect that we could have, fortunately, some terrorist attacks. But what I am sure of is Tunisian people do know that this is the objective of the terrorists. So even if we have any kind of attacks, I hope we are not going to have, but even if we no problem, Tunisia is on the track and nobody would derail the train.
Because last year you had 2 political assassinations in the country. When you heard about those, did you fear that perhaps Tunisia's progress was being derailed?
No, it wasn't, because the objective of those 2 assassinations is to stop the process and even to revert it, even to come back to them. But this didn't happen. I think you probably know that after this, yes, we have had some troubles, but the Constitution, we did it. We wrote the Constitution, and we resumed the national dialogue. So the objective of the terrorists by assassinating those 2 martyrs was achieved.
You have a party in Tunisia, Ennahda, which some say is equivalent really to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. They say they're not going to put up a candidate for president because they want a national unity consensus candidate. Is that you?
Yeah, I think...
You've done a deal with
them? No, I don't agree if you say that they are just like Brotherhood. The Islamic movement is wide, very, very wide spectrum. And you cannot compare the Tunisian to the Egyptian to the Pakistani and so forth. People should stop thinking about the Islamist trend as a whole. It's a spectrum, wide spectrum, and this spectrum is always on the move. It's not it. So Ennahda is the central part of the spectrum. It's I always say they are not. They are just Tunisian Islamists and not Islamist Tunisian. That means that they are first Tunisian, and their background is the Islamist ideology. But the difference is quite obvious, because in Tunisia, our Islamists accepted to share power. This is the main difference. And then when Ennahda 3 or 6 months ago, they saw that the whole process could be threatened if Ennahda stay in power, and the Troika stay in power, not only the Ennahda, but my own political party and the political party of Mr. Bejafar. We decided to step down because we said the national interest is much more important for us than to be in the government. The opposition want, technocrat government. Okay, let's do this technocrat government, but the most important thing is to write down the Constitution and to go to election.
But can you just clear up this one point? Is there any sort of deal between you and Ennahda? Is there any backroom deal?
No, there is no deal. I am running on behalf of my own person, and probably I will be backed by many political parties. But Ennahda, the position of the Ennahda is clear. We're not backing anybody for the first round. For the second round, I don't know. Maybe they will be obliged to. Imagine that I will be in the second round with somebody which is the symbol of the old regime. Of course, they will back me. But nobody knows. I prefer to think about my struggle as a personal and independent struggle.
Whenever I visited Tunisia, and I was there in 2011 at the time of the revolution, you speak to people like Ennahda, who are a very pious party. Some of their members would like something similar to Sharia law in the country, and yet you see the tourists in Tunisia, you see the nightclubs in Tunis, you see the vineyards. Can the two coexist in Tunisia?
Yeah, this is the specificity of our country, and this is the specificity of the Islamist movement in Tunisia. I think the main difference with Ennahda, with other Islamist parties, that they understand that this country is divided, that they cannot rule it, they cannot have the power. Otherwise, they will be, they will be in trouble with the other half of the society. So, they now during the last 20 years, I have a lot of discussion with Rashid Ghannouchi. Don't forget that both of us are intellectuals, so we have had a lot of discussion, and we reached this consensus saying, look, Tunisia belongs to the area of the Islamic Arabic world, but also it's also a country belonging to the Mediterranean area, and also it's a country belonging to the African area. So we have to combine all these identities, and we have to accept that we have three identities. And I think Ennahda and the Islamist movement do understand, especially after the experiment in Egypt, that they have to work with the moderate secular like me to build up a new country, a democratic state, and society, tolerant society, where you can do everything you want, where you can drink wine but be under abide by the law, the common law, and the common law is, and this is why Ennahda, I think, is very different from the other Islamic parties. They have accepted human rights values. This is extremely important.
We're talking supposedly about as many as 50 candidates for the post of president. It's going to be a very exciting election. There are some who, in their past, had links with Ben Ali's regime. Do you find that distasteful? Do you think those people should be involved in the political process, either running for president or involved in parliament?
I have always said that the specificity of our revolution in Tunisia is a peaceful one. We didn't pay high price. When I think the price paid by the Syrian people, I am really very, very sad. But Tunisia, we have had this peaceful revolution. And the way we are going to get rid of the counter-revolution should be also as peaceful as the revolution itself. And I think this election would be the most important way to get rid, definitely, from I'm quite sure that these people will have no chance, to win. This is why I'm not afraid. But I am also proud because for the first time, 50 Tunisians can say, hey, I am able to be president. You remember that in 1949, when I tried to run, I was sent to jail because it was a taboo, even under Bourguiba, under Ben Ali, a Tunisian, saying, I would like to run for presidency, it was a taboo, and he was sent to jail. Now, this is the revolution. We have 50 people running, many women, as I think 5 or 6 women. That's great. That's great. I'm happy. I'm proud of that. But now the people will have to choose between all these people, and I do know that our people is extremely intelligent, and they would never vote for the people from the old regime.
You talk about the positives there, but let me ask you about the dangers facing Tunisia. And maybe let me put the question to you this way. Which is your most dangerous border? Is it the border with Libya, where you have a country in chaos? Is it the border with Algeria, where there are fighters we know near that border? Or is it your international airport, when those Tunisian jihadists who've gone to Syria eventually come home?
Well, our airports are under control, and more and more they are under control. As far as Algeria is concerned, I can assure you that without Algeria, we would have been in mess. Algeria has been a very good neighbor. We are working very closely with our Algerian brothers, to control the frontier. So I'm not upset at all.
But what about those those fighters that are near that border that you've had trouble with.
Yes.
Have you got
yes.
enough resources to deal with them?
Not yet. But working with Algerian, we can tackle the problem. Otherwise, we would have had more troubles. But the problem of Libya is quite different, because Libya, this country is extremely important for us. I always say that Libyans' issue are not a matter of foreign politics, it's domestic politics. We have to deal with the Libyan problem as it is a Tunisian problem. Don't forget that we have 2 million people, 2 million Libyans living in Tunisia. They are not really a refugee, because they are, the population are so close. So. But it's sure that we are very much afraid of any kind of chaos in Libya, and this is why we are struggling, to bring Libyans to talk to each other and to reach the same consensus that we have reached in Tunisia. And I hope that we will do the same thing in Libya.
You say, Mr. President, you're afraid of chaos in
Yes.
Libya, but that's all there is in Libya right now. There are 2 rival governments,
Yes,
2 rival parliaments, and numerous militia. Are you worried
Yes.
that eventually Libya could drag down Tunisia with it?
No. Tunisia is a stable country, is quite different. Many people do not understand why Tunisia is a success story. They think that Tunisians are luckier. If we have this outcome, if Tunisia is a stable country, it's because structural reasons. First of all, we are a small country, 10 million. Second, we are a middle-class country. Third, we are a homogeneous society. We don't have Shia and Sunni and Christian and etc. It's homogeneous. It's middle class. It's well-educated society. We are very close to the Europe's, etc. And also because we have a professional military. This is also very, very important. So because of this structural characteristic, Tunisia cannot have the same outcome or the same problems as Libya. But meanwhile, we have to be very careful, because imagine that now we have 2 million people. Imagine that we have 2 million more. Now, don't forget that we are in transitional period, that we have our own economic problem, that the unemployment rate is extremely high. So you can understand why we are upset by what's happening in Libya. And what we cannot accept, that any kind of military intervention in Libya would trigger more and more, conflicts, and this would be really lead to chaos. Political intervention, yes, from the United Nations, from the Arabic country, from Tunisia, etc. But military intervention from some countries, this would lead to the chaos, not only in Libya, but the whole region.
What about your own military? At home, do they need more resources?
Of course.
What do they need, and who from?
Look, under the dictatorship, Ben Ali was extremely suspicious about military. He was afraid of a coup or something. So after the revolution, we discovered that our army has been, completely abandoned without no equipment. Basic equipment were lacked. So now we are reconstructing this army, and we hope that we will get the needed support from the United States, from Europe, we are getting also support even from Algeria and so forth, even from Morocco. Many countries now are helping us to build up this military and also this our security forces to face the challenge of the terrorists.
Do you think some of the Western countries that could help you, the US and France, have been suspicious because of Ennahda's involvement in the government?
Maybe,
over the last
maybe in
years?
the beginning, but now last month I have been I've attended the meeting, the African American meeting in Washington. And I had a good discussion with Vice President Joe Biden, and he assured me that the United States would support the effort of Tunisia to tackle the security issue. And I have had the same promise from President Obama himself, with the Italian president, the French president, etc. I feel that the West now is quite convinced that Tunisia should be the success story that is badly needed in this region.
Yes, in a region where you have the situation in Syria and now in Iraq, and the rise of ISIL, this group that controls swathes of territory in both. And when you look at the figures of foreign fighters, and I'm not sure anyone has very accurate figures, but most of those who studied this say the number of Tunisians is top of the list. 3,000 maybe Tunisians have gone to fight. How concerned are you?
No, I'm not sure of this figure. First, let me say that I have condemned, and I condemn on behalf of the Tunisian people all kind of persecution against Christian, against Yazidi and so forth. I feel ashamed as a Muslim that something like this could happen. I think this guy have nothing to do with Islam, and I think it's now the ISIS is probably the most important threat against not against the West, but against the Arabs and our own civilization, you know. So we have to tackle this problem. Now, sure, for sure that we have foreign fighters, but you know, they come from France, they come from England, they come from the United States, they come from everywhere. So the question is, why ISIS is so attractive? This is the question. Why is it so attractive, even for young Tunisian? You know, the response is obvious. You know, we still have a high rate of unemployment. Young people, you know, waiting that the politician would have think about them, about their future, and it's very difficult to explain to these people waiting that we have to build the ground. You know, we cannot avoid discussion to have the constitution, to have a new framework, because this would be the ground on which we can build the new Tunisian house. Some of them, they cannot understand this kind. They are too impatient, and then they think that they will find the solution elsewhere. But so it's very strange position for Tunisian. You know, we are sending some of our young people go, and we in Tunisia itself we are trying to build up a new democracy. That's strange, but this is life.
Going back to the time of your revolution, I remember being there in Tunis and being tear-gassed and speaking to the protesters, and top of the issues was corruption, the corruption of Ben Ali. But you haven't brought the corruption under control, have you?
No, not at all, because once again, we have been, you cannot imagine how many problems you have to tackle in this kind of transition. Our main problem was once again to keep the country together and avoid this bipolarization between Islamists, and then writing down the constitution, then setting up the new institution like independent judiciary and so forth and so forth. And this is time consuming, you know. Time consuming. You sometimes we really were afraid of a coup or something like that. So it's time consuming. You have to so the structural problem and the corruption is a structural problem. We didn't, I would say, nothing to tackle it. Very few measures. But after, I think this would be the beginning of the solution of the problem after the election, because then we will have all the time to tackle the social and economic problem, and this problem is on the top of the list.
My final question, Mr. President. Are you optimistic about the future, or are you worried? Can Tunisia remain an island of stability in a troubled Middle East?
Yes, I am very optimistic for Tunisia, once again for the structural reason I talked to you. Now we have, as I told you, professional military, we have educated population, middle class population, and so on. And now we have I think the support of the Western country, because they do know that if Tunisia fails, the whole process, the democratic process on the Arab world will be finished for probably a century or more. So we have good cards to play. But of course, I am a little bit worried for the. But don't forget that we don't belong only to this area. We are also part of the Mediterranean. We are close to Europe, and this is a stable. We are good relationship with Morocco, Algeria, and other stable countries, etc. Don't see just the half of the image. Yes, our left, Libya, and so forth, dangerous situation. but at the west and the north, and even at the south, we have good relationship now with sub-Saharan African countries. So Tunisia is on the good track. You can bet on Tunisia.
President Moncef Marzouki,
That's
thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
That's right.